Today we're going to talk about Workbook 4A, Exercise 12. This is in your textbook, page 31 through 38. We'll start on page 31, where we're reviewing division problems, and they do these problems using the process that we know as long division, 4,206 divided by 3. Now remember, we've talked about this before. You are going to first divide, and then you're going to multiply. Then you're going to subtract, and then you're going to bring down a number, and then you're going to repeat the process until there's no more numbers to bring down. So that process is what I'm going to demonstrate for you. When I say divide, I mean we're going to look at the first number 4 and ask ourselves, what is 4 divided by 3? Well, I can put 1 3 into the number 4. 3 goes into 4 one time. 4 divided by 3 gives me one group of 3. Either way you want to look at that. And the 1 goes on top of the 4, right there. And then I'm going to multiply. 1 times 3 is 3. And then subtract. 4 minus 3 is 1. And then bring down a 2. And now I have the same thing to do again. What is 12 divided by 3? Well, that's easy. That number is 4. Now I'm going to multiply. 4 times 3 is 12. Then I'm going to subtract. 12 subtract 12 is 0. I'm going to bring down the 0. Now this looks kind of funny. 0 divided by 3, if I have 0 pieces of candy and I want to share it among 3 friends, everybody gets 0 pieces. That's 0 divided by 3. Then we multiply. 0 times 3 is 0. When I subtract, that's easy. I get 0, and I bring down a 6. 6 divided by 3 is 2. 2 times 3 is 6. 6 minus 6 is 0. I have nothing else to bring down. When everything has already been brought down, then I'm finished. In this case, I have a remainder of 0. Now, I think that way of division is great. I think it's important to understand how to do those steps. I also hope that when you think of 4,206 and you want to divide it by 3, that you think, that's 3,000 and there's still 1,206. And I chose 3,000 because that can be divided by 3. I know that 1,206 is like 1,206, and now notice that each of these numbers is divisible by 3. 3,000 divided by 3 is 1,000. 1,200 divided by 3 is 400. 6 divided by 3 is 2. I bet you see what's going on here. Either way, we have the answer 1,402. You just have to be smart about how you separate the number. I want to have a number that will go into, that will be divided by 3, so I picked 3,000. And then I picked 1,200. And the 6 is what was left over. So both processes give you, of course, the same answer. And I think it'd be good to practice both of those. I'm going to do one of these with long division. I'll do the other one with the other process. 3,250 divided by 5. 3 divided by 5 doesn't work. If I have 3 pencils and I have to divide it among 5 children, I cannot give everybody a pencil. So I'm not going to start with 3. I'm going to start with 32. What is 32 divided by 5? Well, at most, I have 6 5s in there. That's the divide part. Then when I multiply 6 times 5 for 30, then I'm going to subtract and get 2, bring down a number of 5. Then I do it again. 25 divided by 5 is 5. Multiply 5 times 5 to be 25. Subtract, get 0, bring down a 0. The important thing here is to realize we've brought everything down. We have a 0 at the bottom, but we're not finished. The answer is not 65. Notice when I had a 32, I had to put the 6 right above the 2. That means the 6 is in the hundreds place. This answer is not 65, it's 650. 0 divided by 5 is 0. 0 times 5 is 0. 0 subtract 0 is 0. You don't exactly have to do that last step as long as you recognize that 650 is the answer, not 65. Another thing that's good is the one reason we did the estimation skills in the last one is because we can kind of get an idea. Is 65 a reasonable answer? Oh no, it's not. Look, I forgot about that place value. I don't have a 0 where I need to have a 0. So having the place value in there is very helpful. All right, I continue to change colors so you can see it. The board is getting a bit full. 4,235 divided by 7. If you know your multiplication facts, you know that 42 is a multiple of 7, so that's 4,235. And as it turns out, both of those are multiples of 7, so if I just divide by 7, 4,200 divided by 7 is 600. 35 divided by 7 is 5, so the answer to that one is 605. None of these are hard necessarily. They just require you to think and to use good math skills as you're going through the problems. Continuing on to page 31 and 32, they begin to do another process where we say, okay, what if we have 40 divided by 10? We've never divided by anything but a one-digit number. Now we're going to do division by 10. As always, we can start with that visually. 40 looks like this. If I divide it into groups of 10, how many groups do I have? I have 4 groups. 40 divided into tens is 4. What about 400? If you've been doing Singapore Math Live for a while, you remember that I represent tens by a square with a check mark, hundreds by a circle with a check mark. And remember, each of these hundreds is 10 tens. So there's 10 tens, there's 10 more tens, here's 10 tens, and this is 10 tens. So 400 divided into tens altogether is 40 tens. If you have 400 and you say how many tens is that divided into groups of 10, you'll find that there are 40 groups. 440 divided by 10. For the third one, 440 divided by 10, notice that this is 400 and this is 40, and so if I divide all of those into tens, I will have 44 tens. Now, do you notice anything about dividing by 10? When we divide by 10, the 0 at the end goes away. It's not good to do math just by memorizing things like that, but it is good to notice patterns when they become evident as you do the problems. So on number 8, when it asks us to estimate 3,840 divided by 6, with division, we're not going to necessarily go to the nearest thousand. We want to go to the nearest number that is going to be divisible by 6. So if I think of 3,800 and I think of the multiples of 6, 3,600 and 4,200 are the closest multiples. Notice that 3,800 is between those two, and 3,800 is closer to 4,200 than it is to 3,600 because, maybe this would be helpful too, 3,600 and 4,200, this is 3,700, 3,800, 3,900. That made those a little bit too small. Let me fix this. I see that I am making a mistake. Sometimes even adults and teachers make mistakes. So let me see if I can correct myself here. I was thinking that 38 was halfway between 36 and 42, and it's not. If I draw out the picture and I see 3600 and 4200, halfway in between is 3900. So 3840 is closer to 3600. So when I do the estimate, I'm just going to think of 3600 divided by 6. 3600 divided by 6 is 600, and that would be the best estimate for 3840 divided by 6. That would be how I would estimate that. Notice that when you do this estimation, you have to know multiples of 6 so that you can look at that and know that 3600 and 4200 go exactly evenly divided by 6, and then you can just determine correctly, hopefully, that 3840 is closer to 3600. Then we have number 9 that wants us to do 3245 divided by 10. 3245 divided by 10. We have not had a two-digit number out here before, but it works exactly the same. 3 is not divisible by 10, but I can think of 32 divided by 10, and that goes 3 times. 3 times 10 is 30. When I subtract, bring down a 4. 10 goes into 24 twice. 2 times 10 is 20. Subtract, bring down the 5. 10 goes into 45 4 times. 4 times 10 is 40. Subtract and get 5. I have nothing else to bring down, and so my answer is going to be 324 remainder 5. And remember that not every problem goes in evenly, and so sometimes we have a remainder as part of our answer. All right, on page 33, it actually says there to go to exercise 12. I think these are supposed to be part of that. Best I can tell, this should be on the assignment before you do before you do exercise 12. So let's look at those. If we're going to estimate and then divide, 36 is a multiple of 9, so 3600 divided by 9 is 400. And by the way, this is a great time to pause, do it yourself, see how it goes. This is 3,580 divided by 7, but 3,500 divided by 7 is equal to 500. 3,120 divided by 8, the closest multiple of 8 is going to be 32. 3,200 divided by 8 is 400. 8,128 divided by 10. Here's a good question. Do we estimate this to 8,100 or to 8,000 or even to 8,130, which is 813 tens? And this is where I say, you know, any of these answers I would count correct as a teacher because it doesn't tell you exactly how to estimate it. So you have to figure that out on your own, which means there's a lot of ways to do it. Remember, if you take 8,128 to 800, this is 800 tens. So if you divide it into tens, you have 800. If you take 8,128 to the nearest hundred, you have 810 tens, and that would be an estimate of 810. Here we have 813 tens, so that's even a closer estimate to the right answer. 8,128 is not far from 8,130, which is exactly 813 tens. When I divide it by 10, I get 813. So it's very easy for that one to make it pretty close to the right exact answer. 7,528, not quite as easy to make to the nearest, or to make a lot of guesses on. If I look at that one and think, okay, this is between 6,000 and 9,000, and halfway between there is actually 7,500. 7,528 is just a little bit closer to 9,000. So 9,000 divided by 3 is 3,000. The last one on this group, 7,180, the closest number would be 6,000. 6,000 divided by 6 is 1,000. Again, there are lots of ways to do estimation. As best I can tell, they're just keeping it very simple and taking it to the nearest thousand most of the times. I wanted to show you a little bit of variation on this one. And then, of course, on these that don't go to the nearest thousand, it's better to go to 3,600 rather than 3,000 or 4,000 because that wouldn't divide evenly either. Okay, estimation, division, that's what you're doing today. Now you're ready to do exercise 12.